Oh, God. I showed that film about Chevron. There was a lot of BBC reports. In fact, I have some out. I've compiled some called Palast Investigates, since they won't let the BBC reports into America. It bounced off the electronic Berlin Wall. ABC, by the way, ABC television network, is allowed to run under a deal with BBC all of my reports. You know, like the one about Catherine Harris removing black voters from the voter rolls, Chevron, the secret reports from the secret plans for the oil fields of Iraq. I'm not saying we went in for the oil, but, you know, we sure as hell weren't leaving without it. But ABC's actually never run one of my reports. And the price of them is free. They say it's too expensive. And it is. Going back, that goes back to the Citizens United case, right? Now, I picked part of that BBC report on Chevron for good reason, because of a couple things. Right now I'm in something called the Amazon to Arctic investigation. So that was me in the Amazon, where, by the way, I was really a dugout canoe. You know, I was told that's not a setup shot. I'm not, you know, Anderson Cooper went through that. He couldn't get his makeup man in the canoe. I have to say that was actually real. I was told that the natives, that the indigenous people, the Kofan, would have a boat waiting for me to take them to their village, right? And so it's in the rainforest, and really it's raining, right? It's pouring down, and we go to the end of an endless track, and I said, so where does the boat show up? They said, that's your boat, that single log that was dug out. And I could just see, you know, the headline, you know, unknown white reporter found floating face down the Amazon. So I tried to get in. The first thing I did is drop my microphone into the Amazon, where it sleeps with the piranhas now. I have a very calm cameraman who didn't mind. But yeah, we went there, and listening to those lawyers from Chevron. I give them as much time as they want to tell their case. You know, you didn't get all of it, which was, you know, like, what? This is the only country where kids die of leukemia. And they said, you know, you have to prove. You're going to have to prove that it was oil that killed them, and then you're going to have to prove it's our oil. And the guy was like, had a big grin, and you'll never be able to do that. Oh, yes, I will. By the way, 60 Minutes did pick up that story. Once in a while they do, but they wouldn't run the stuff about the secret documents where they said to destroy evidence. No, we don't want to do that. Just like when they picked up my story about how Dan Rather, 60 Minutes, how George Bush got out of the war in Vietnam. Actually, he didn't get out of the war in Vietnam. He became a pilot in the U.S. Air Guard, where he protected Texas against Viet Cong attack. And I ran that story on BBC television. 60 Minutes picked it up. Then they ran away from it. So did Dan. You should see his lawsuit. It said, I agreed to be silent in return for a promise to have more time on 60 Minutes. Nice, Dan. It's integrity. We have never withdrawn a word of our story at BBC. Yeah. But I want to bring up Chevron, because I'm investigating the entire oil industry, in part because I want to talk about the company that destroyed the Gulf shore, the Gulf of Mexico. It's named Chevron. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a couple things. Let's tell a couple stories. Number one, I was with the chief lawyer on the BP case when the call came in. We were both in Vegas, actually, playing nickel slots. I kid you not. And the call came into him from the Coast Guard the night of April 20th. And the Coast Guard said that there has been an explosion at a deep water rig, and his clients were found, they believe his clients are in a safety capsule, a big giant safety capsule that blew off the rig, where you go inside in case there's a trouble. So it's blast proof, etc., and it floats. But no one answered, so they just assumed that the 11 workers, his clients, were cooked alive, and they just wanted his permission to open the capsule to retrieve the corpses. That was my introduction to what happened that night. And then I watched the oil spread. And I said to myself, I've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie before, because before as a journalist I had a real job. I was an investigator. And I was in charge of the investigation of fraud in the grounding of the Exxon Valdez, fraud charges. And as you saw in my little film introducing it, yeah, Exxon can't be let off the hook. They literally turned off the radar. It was the early GPS. Now you get it for $100. That was a $2 million machine. They didn't want to bother figuring out how to make it work. So they turned the radar off. But that's not why the oil hit the beaches. The oil hit the beaches in the Exxon Valdez, destroyed 1,200 miles of coastline, because the equipment that was supposed to be there, that rubber, that stuff that they call boom, the kind of orange skirts you throw around. It's not rocket science to stop an oil spill or a blowout. You put a bunch of rubber around it, called boom. You take out these sucker ships called skimmers that suck the oil out of the boom, the oil that's been contained in the boom, and that's it. Maybe you light it, that's all. It's not rocket science, okay? Now, when that happened, why did it happen? The ship Exxon Valdez hit on Bligh Reef, the thing named after Captain Bligh, really. And right at Bligh Reef, there's a native village. Alaskan natives, the Tutitlik village. The Chief Gary Komkoff, and Chief Komkoff told me that they watched the ship come in right towards the village, and they're saying, what the? This must be some weird test. And they literally watched that tanker grind right up onto the reef. And they knew, first of all, that was the end of the ship, of course, and that was the end of the village. Because they lived completely, they're in the middle of nowhere, they lived completely off what they could catch out of that water. And now, the salmon are still back, but your choice is leaded and unleaded. It's still there. Go to Sleepy Bay. Go back to Alaska, as I'm going to do in 2 weeks, and you stick your hand in the beach. It looks clean. Then you stick your hand in and pull it up, and there's covered with crude. 20 years later. That's why I'm so thrilled when our Department of Interior Secretary, Mr. Salazar, says, oil's gone. Oil's gone. I'll tell you what, you drink that water, Mr. Salazar, then tell me the oil's gone after you're done vomiting.